Thank you for tuning into TTV. I'm your host, Toya, and today is Wisdom Wednesday. And so on Wednesdays, we go over the Tao Te Ching. And this is the version I use. There are many different translations that are out there, so feel free to research it if you want. I find it fascinating because these proverbs, which, the Tao Te Ching is basically old wise proverbs. Was written like 4,500 years ago, and it still fascinates me that they still apply today. So a lot of the tips and tricks and things as discussed in this book still apply to us today. So we experience the same things our ancestors experienced 4,500 years ago. Okay, so it's not something that a lot of stuff that I discuss on this channel isn't stuff that we're just now figuring out or just now coming across. It's stuff that's been we as humans have been dealing with for thousands of years. Okay. So this week the title is Wisdom is Effortless Mutuality. And what I gather from it is basically just saying that you can't fill a full cup. Okay, if your cup is full, you can't fill it. But let's get into it, get to reading it, and then I'll break it down. So what I do is I'll read the whole verse, and then I'll go by each piece by piece. Okay. So this one has 4 sections. In the first section, we'll get started. The expert traveler leaves no footprint. The expert speaker makes no mispronunciations. The expert calculation needs no calculator. The expert in closing things needs no lock. Yet no one can open what has been closed. The expert in binding uses no knot. Yet no one can pull apart what has been bound. The expert in caring for things never wastes anything. The expert at helping people never abandons anyone. These are the paths to enlightenment, and those who arrive at their destination teach those who are still on the path, while those still on the path are a source of wisdom for the teachers. So the first part of it to me, where it says the expert traveler leaves no footprint, the expert speaker makes no mispronunciation, and the expert calculation needs no calculator. So if you're an expert in something, then you're the expert. That's it. There's no room for anything else to be added to it because you know it all. And it says the expert in closing thing needs no lock, yet no one can open what has been closed. So if you close up something, like your mind, nobody else can open it. Nobody else can contribute to it. Nobody else can add to it. Nobody else can do anything with it because you've already closed it. An expert in binding uses no knots, yet no one can pull apart what has been bound. And so when we feel like we are experts on something, and when I say we, I mean the human race, period. But when people feel like they're experts on something, then they bind themselves to what they know. And it can't be undone, and no one else can actually contribute to it because you know it all. You're the expert. The expert in caring for things never wastes anything, and the expert in helping people never abandons anyone. So if you're expert in caring for things, then you're going to make sure everything that you come in contact with is taken care of, including your garbage, including the animals, the house, the everything you come across. You're going to make sure it's taken care of because that's what you do. You're an expert taking care of things. Just like if you're an expert at helping people, then you're always going to be helping people because everybody always needs help. So to me, with those two things is eventually you're going to end up getting to a point where you're going to have to stop and let go of some stuff. But that's not what it's talking about. It's just saying, acknowledging the fact that people think they're experts. It says there are no paths to enlightenment. Those who arrive at their destination teach those who are still on the path, while those still on the path are sources of wisdom for the teachers. So when you think you know everything and you think you're an expert on it and you close your mind to stuff, nothing else can be put in. You can't learn nothing else as far as that field goes. And in life, we find that things are always constantly changing, constantly becoming new, constantly being updated, which means there's always a possibility of coming across something that you don't know, whether it's a perspective, whether it's information, whether it's a different way of doing something. So a different skill set for what it is that you're an expert on. And a lot of times I found in my own life, my own journey, is that when somebody is an expert at something, then they're closed-minded and don't hear other people when they make suggestions or give you a different perspective on looking at stuff, because they know it all. And when you do that, you close yourself up to additional learning, because again, things are always changing, things are always becoming new, there's always different perspective. Like, look at math. The way these kids do math nowadays is nothing like when I was in school. It's much more complicated. Why is this so complicated? I don't know. But it seems like the way that we did it when we were kids, and I'm 46, y'all, so when 45. So when I say we, I mean people my age. The way we did it when we were kids was a lot simpler. Like, when you add it, you just add it, carry the one, add, and then you're done. Nowadays they do, break it up into tens and fives and singles, and then add that up, and then like all this other complicated stuff. So if I were to go to one of these teachers and try to show them how I learned to do it, they don't look at me like I'm crazy. Like, that ain't how we do it. But it's an easier way of doing it, right? So that's the same thing about expert. Like, when you're being an expert on something, you close your mind to accepting different possibilities on different ways of doing things. And so, and this, I think, is their way of saying, don't do that, because you can learn. Even the Bible talks about that. It says a child shall lead them. So what if that child is your student? And that student has a different perspective on looking at something. Everybody wants to be the teacher to the next Einstein or the next Elon Musk or the next whoever is going to be the next big person. You want to be the teacher to that, but in order to be a teacher, sometimes you have to learn from your student. And a lot of times, like I said, I've come across where the teachers don't want to learn from the students. You're the student, I'm the teacher. You go off of what I know, off of what I'm teaching. Everything else don't matter. And that actually suffocates the student, because what if their version or their way of looking at it was actually a correct way of doing it? What if their way was even a better way of doing it? What if their way wasn't a better way of doing it or was incorrect? Now you just shot them down with no answer just because you didn't want to follow it, didn't want to listen to it, because you want them to do it your way. So sometimes it does work out to where the student is the one teaching, but sometimes it also works out to where, it's a teaching opportunity for the teacher, to explain, like, okay, listen, how did you come up with that? All right, well, this is where your ideal or your perspective kind of runs a little off course when you do this or when you say this, like, guide them, teach them, So my overall thing on this is, don't call yourself an expert. That's all. You can say you're very knowledgeable on something, but I don't think I would ever get to the point on anything that I do to where I would consider myself an expert. Because once you label yourself as an expert, then you're the know-it-all, be-all. And to me, it doesn't leave room for any kind of growth or any kind of perspective from anybody else. But then that's my opinion. That's my opinion. I would love to hear what you think, what you got out of this, how you took this. So please drop a comment below and let me know. And while you're down there, please like, subscribe, and share, because if you get something out of this content, chances are someone else will as well. I love you, and I will talk to you tomorrow.